The early 1970s introduced theater audiences to the disaster film genre. There were none that were more important than the 1970 hit film Airport. It starred Burt Lancaster and Dean Martin and was written and directed by George Seaton. The movie is based on a novel by Arthur Haley that had the same title as the movie. It's a story about an airport manager that tries his best to keep his airport open during a snowstorm, all while at the same time a suicide bomber plots to blow up a Boeing 707 while the airliner is in flight. The fictional airport of Lincoln International Airport is the setting of the film. Intertwined through the whole movie are personal stories that influence the decisions that are made minute by minute by the airport and the airline staff. Burt Lancaster, who headlined the movie above the title with Dean Martin, made a great deal of money off this film. This film was a huge success, and his contract gave him a 10% profit from the movie once the movie hit $50 million. It grossed $45 million in North America alone. Despite this financial windfall, Lancaster said he hated this movie. He thought it was the worst piece of junk he'd ever made. He said that the only reason he made the film was in return for the studio agreeing to finance several other non-commercial films that he was interested in. Now, the real star of the show is the Boeing 707, which has a serial number of 19351, and it was the 503rd that came off the production line. This aircraft was leased to Universal Pictures from the company called Flying Tigers, which is now Federal Express. They used this airplane for the filming of the exterior shots. After the filming was complete, the aircraft returned back to Flying Tigers. Then it was later sold, going through a few different owners before it met a tragic end. It crashed while on landing approach on March 21st, 1989, in Brazil. The field and terminal scenes were all filmed entirely at the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. And this was done intentionally because of the abundance of snowfall that this airport always receives. But at first, this didn't happen. The snowfall was really light, and the film's producers were forced to use bleached sawdust as a supplement to the small amounts of snow that they had at the airport. Eventually, a snowstorm hit, and this wasn't a problem anymore. When the production cost of the film just spiraled over budget, Universal chairman Lew Wasserman told producer Ross Hunter to shut the project down. Hunter persisted and ended up finishing the film. Universal executives predicted that it would be a flop. They didn't think it would do anything at the box office. Their plan was to premiere it in a multitude of markets, hoping to recoup their loss before word of mouth killed it at the box office. But to their surprise, the film turned out to be a hit and brought in huge profits for the studio. The producer, Hunter, publicly boasted that the film paid the salaries at Universal for several years. This statement made him get real sideways with Universal chairman Lew Wasserman, and they didn't pick back up his contract when it was time for renewal. Now, the name of the fictional airline that was given in this movie was Transglobal Airlines. And for many years after this movie was done and gone, it was not unusual for these props that were used in this movie, such as the fictional TGA logo, to show up in a multitude of Universal films where airline interior scenes were being shot. The producers really tried to be accurate with most of the details that they used in this film, down to the most minute things. One of the things that was extremely accurate was the communications between the aircraft and the air traffic controllers. This was just like it was supposed to be in real life. In the shots of the airport terminal, if you look around, you can see the ticket counters for Northwest Orient Airlines, Western Airlines, Pan Am, TWA, and Continental Airlines. It's quite surprising that none of these airlines exist today, either because they went bankrupt or because of mergers. The airplane model that they use for the miniature shots was also used in the television show Emergency. The episode was The Girl on the Balance Beam in 1976. It was used when the paramedics rescue an actress in a harness for a flying scene. She was in front of the night sky backdrop with the airplane model on wires in the shot also. This movie was among the first films to ever top 100 million at the box office. But this still ranked second for the year of 1970. First was the movie Love Story, which took in 106 million. Both of these movies were nominated for the Best Picture Academy Award, but both eventually lost the top Oscar to the movie Patton. During the scene where Burt Lancaster and Commissioner Ackerman are arguing over closing down the airport, there is a model in the conference room of Boeing's proposed supersonic transport plane. This was once thought to be the future of air travel, but in reality, though, America's SSTs never made it beyond the design stages. Although it looks almost modern, the computer terminal that's in use by the reservation agents is the IBM 2260 display station. And this was one of the first interactive computer terminals that was ever used. It was introduced in 1964. Interactive computing over dedicated networks found one of its earliest applications in the airline ticketing and reservation system. Edith Head, the famous costume designer, designed a line of airport-inspired clothing for the High-Stron Fiber Company, utilizing its Trivera polyester fabric. The line was called the Airport Look Collection and was launched with a fashion show in January of 1970. Needless to say, this line was not successful at all, and it was quietly withdrawn. Now, the stories in this film are loosely based on some actual events that really happened back in 1962. And this was the bombing of Continental Airlines Flight 11. This was done by Thomas Doty, and unlike in the film, the explosion caused the in-flight destruction of the 707. Incredibly, though, one passenger out of the 45 on board survived the impact during a fall of 26,000 feet. But this person died 90 minutes later. Thomas Doty had a motive, and that was that his wife and daughter would be able to collect on a $300,000 life insurance policy. His widow attempted to collect on the insurance, but when Doty's death was ruled a suicide, the policy was voided, and all she ended up getting from this tragedy was a $3 refund. His wife never talked about it publicly after the bombing occurred. She ended up dying in 2008 at the age of 81. In July of 2010, a memorial was erected near the crash site in Unionville, Missouri, and this was done on the anniversary of the crash. The movie Airport was released on May 29, 1970. It premiered as the first 70mm film to be shown at New York's Radio City Music Hall. It ran for 12 weeks there. This film was an absolute blockbuster. The total box office was $100,489,000. The critics were pretty rough on it, as they usually are on these type of disaster films. But the studio is the one that has the last laugh. It performed and did what it was supposed to do, make money for the studio. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.